All right, guys, welcome to the Onelife Podcast. Today, I've got the pleasure of having Vital with us. Thank you so much for being here. He's a motivational speaker, 7-time author.
Yes.
And just a very inspiring person. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Thank you very much, mate.
Mate, very welcome. Let's go back to the beginning. How did you get to where you get to now? And what made you want to go that path? Because that's a very unique path.
You do not waste time. Straight into the deep end. Everybody's journey is always fascinating, and
That's 100%. That's what I'm finding from this podcast. Everyone's journey is fascinating,
and we all go through challenges, and sometimes, and I wish I could say that where I've ended up today was a big master plan. So the journey ultimately begins. We have somewhat of a vision, right? So the journey, and I have different dreams and different aspirations. So the journey into public speaking happened indirectly as a result. I've been a performer for Cirque Du Soleil. I know you understand the entertainment world. There's a lot of great value that I bring from that entertainment world into what I do today. But there I am performing for Cirque Du Soleil, incredible company, surrounded by some of the most motivational and inspirational people, and the mindset.
The mindset and the dedication to even get to that point, right?
Yes.
Because that's the best of the best of the best.
Yes. And I know that you love motivational literature. There is a quote or a statistic that we are the average of the 5 people we hang out with the most, right? So in this environment, you are around Olympic gymnasts, national champions of this. And it's just this mindset of competition can be ugly and dangerous, but when you compete with yourself, right? It's not about, I want to be better than you. I want to be better tomorrow than I was yesterday. So the competition is healthy when it's with the self. So I'm surrounded by all these amazing people, but then I have this career-ending injury. And I know you've gone through a career change. You've gone through reinventions. Everybody does for the most part. It's horrible. It's tough. It's challenging. There are the years of woe is me. You now got to find a new purpose that gives you a sense of value, a sense of I'm contributing to society. And then so after 2, 3, 4 years of woe is me from this rehab, I slowly found a new passion.
Can I just go in a little bit depth on the injury? So how long had you been doing what you've been doing? Like you started at what age? Very early, I'm guessing.
Well, my journey began as a want-to-be football player, soccer player. By the way, Australia. Congratulations, mate. Congratulations. So I wanted to be a soccer player, and then that evolved into the performing arts. So I began the performing arts very late, 24.
Oh, really?
Very late.
Very late.
And I
so no gymnastic experience or?
I was a street acrobat, breakdancing.
Okay. But I mean, that's amazing. It started at that age and to go to the level that you went to.
Commitment, dedication, all the things.
Okay.
If you identify the vision, the dream, and you commit to that, and you do it incrementally over time, consistently, amazing things can happen.
I love talking to you. Love it.
You know the journey.
It's so rare to be able to find people like yourself. If you 100% commit and you really want it, and you take the fluff away, you take the excuses away, you can do anything.
Absolutely. But a part of it is you've got to believe in it. And even if you don't believe, I mean, I believe in the power of self-doubt. But when I say self-doubt, it's not the belittling self-doubt, limiting beliefs. Self-doubt in the sense that, okay, I'm going to step back and reevaluate because I'm not sure that I am the person today that I need to be. So I've got to step back. Okay, it's not working right now. I don't know if I can do this. All right, then let me get these tools so then I can become that person. So that's what self-doubt.
You got to become that person to be worthy of being where you're trying to be.
But self-doubt is often viewed as, no, got to be confident. Self-doubt is a human emotion. It's a question now of how do I leverage that?
And you're also talking self-awareness too, right? Being honest with yourself and knowing exactly where you're at. Like I know where I'm at with my podcast. I'm not talking to Richard Branson today because I'm not ready yet. But 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 interviews, I'll be ready.
Yeah. You don't have Richard Branson, but you have another man with a charming British accent.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Second best. But yes, to your point, it's all about the focus. But then, so going back to this injury and how I became a speaker, the years of woe is me, then I found this new passion. And here's the other part about transformation is initially I rejected all my experience because I no longer wanted to be this. Right now, I want to be a motivational speaker. I can no longer be a Cirque du Soleil performer. I've got to be serious and professional now. And I forgot that I've got this wealth of experience. Now it was just a question of don't deny it, repackage it, repurpose it in a way that now fits the new mission. And then so when I came full circle and reconnected to those great experiences, it brought me such confidence and value as a motivational speaker, because I traveled this journey. I didn't have to ignore or deny the journey. I have to leverage the journey.
What makes you think you can be a motivational speaker? Like, who are you? What makes you special to be able to, I mean, that's got to be a struggle in itself, right?
Yes, it is. There was a lot of imposter syndrome along the way.
What do you mean?
Imposter syndrome in the sense that, for the most part, we look at motivational speakers and they are these, you know, the Richard, Brendan Burchards, the Simon Sinek's. I mean, you know, I'm drawing a blank, but you know, there are endless motivational speakers. And we always sort of have this impression that in order to be a motivational speaker, you have to have made it.
Yeah, 100%, right? That's even where I'm struggling. Like, who am I to have a podcast or put out like information to help people? Who am I?
Well, here's my answer to that. Who are we? We are people who've traveled a certain journey. First of all, you've also come from another country, right? So the courage that it takes to pursue a dream is enormous. So the courage that you had to get up, leave your safe haven, your home country, your family, all the people that you knew, go out there and pursue a goal. And you've done very well. And now you're just venturing into something new. So you have the credentials. You've got a story that is rich. So to be the motivational speaker, I don't have to be at the top. I don't have to be a multi-billionaire. Life is a work in progress. And as long as I'm sharing with authenticity, vulnerability, humility, we can inspire people.
Love that you say that. Love that you say that.
But I inspire people sometimes with this is the other part, some of my biggest failures have been the most inspirational thing for people.
100%, right? And like you said, the vulnerability and humility is another, it's the relatability that comes with that, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're on top and everything's perfect, you're not relatable. Nobody really is going to engage with you.
No.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking with this podcast, is trying to share more about me, my journey, my struggles, so I'm more relatable, so more people like tune in and they connect with me.
Yeah. And again, going back to your question about what gives me the right, or you the right, or anybody else the right to be a motivational speaker, is that, first of all, it can come from two things in sense of purpose. So the purpose can simply be, here's what I've experienced, and all I want to do is contribute and help others, because I'm sure people helped you along the way. Right?
Absolutely.
So there's this element of paying it forward. I've got some phenomenal role models who literally not just changed my life, but they saved my life. And so one of the best ways I believe we can pay it forward is, yes, I want to be successful, but success when it's just for the self is empty.
Yeah, it's no depth, right?
The real flex is, in terms of leadership, I talk a lot about leadership, but in terms of leadership, for me, the ultimate leader is not the one who's achieved everything. The ultimate leader is the one who enables, empowers, inspires others to achieve their objectives. And that's all I can do.
The more people
I do it
help.
in the way that I know how.
Gotcha. That's so cool. Did you cop a lot of like flack and a lot of hate, like you trying to step up and be this person, or did you have the right environment at the time, or did you have people kind of like tall poppy syndrome, people pulling you back? Like, what do you think you're doing?
All of the above. Anybody on a journey that is trying to become a new version of themselves.
Yeah, a new version, a better version of yourself, right?
Of yourself. Yeah. The 2.0 or the 3.0 of whoever you are, or the 5.0. Here's the sad part of growth. As you grow, you either have people who believe in you and support you and want to be a part of your journey.
And grow with you.
Or you get those who are envious because you started at the same place, or maybe you started even lower. And because of your drive, ambition, hope, belief, resilience, you are leaving them behind. And so resentment builds. So now they can try and pull you down. And there are endless ways that people will try and pull you down. Sometimes they pose as friends.
You can be directly or indirectly, right?
Yes. And you mentioned one word, awareness. So in terms of awareness, be self-aware of what your objectives are, but be very aware of who are the true supporters and who are the haters, so to speak, because I talk a lot about empathy, and I can empathize with people who try to bring me down or bring other people down. I can understand why, but I have learned over time to set boundaries with those who no longer serve me.
I like that, boundaries. So you're understanding who's adding value to your life, who's taking it from you, and you're setting boundaries on how much you got to do with those people, right?
Yes.
And it goes back to the 5 closest friends. If you're around the right people, they're the ones you're going to want to spend more time with.
Absolutely. Now, having said that, I want to sort of qualify that a little bit by saying there's also another expression: if you are the smartest person in the room, get out of the room. Right now, I'm going to challenge that, because a part of being somebody who wants to inspire others, if I'm only in the room by interest of absorbing from others, then I'm no longer giving.
Ty Lopez talks about that.
He does. Good man.
He's like 30% people above you, 30%
Yes.
people below you, 30% people on the same level as you.
Yes. So be in a room of people who are better than you, so that you can learn. Be in a room of people who you can inspire and
You can pull up with you. Yeah.
Both. Life is a give and take journey.
I really like how you say that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you are very well spoken. You come across very intellectual. You come across very well spoken. Where did that come from? Is that something you always had, or is that from reading, self-education?
No, the very short and simple answer is because by default of having a British accent, no matter what I say.
Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, it is.
And me being Aussie, slang, and need to start being more pommy. But I mean, there is education behind that, which helps.
There is education. I mean, we talked about vulnerability and being the imposter syndrome. So here's something that I'm going to reveal that most people don't know. I am relatively intelligent. I've taken the time, I've invested time to read books. I know you love reading books. I've taken the time to read books, to learn, but I don't have a GED. It's just circumstantial. When I was in England, I was about 4 months from graduating in England, secondary school, going on to college, and horrible circumstance. Overnight, I literally moved to Belgium.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I basically started my secondary education all over again, going back in a class with, I was now the smartest in the room because I was the oldest, but I was 17 in class with 12, 13-year-olds learning this new language.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a completely different language.
Completely different language, different culture, different everything. And then circumstance had it, I had to go into the army.
Okay.
Before graduating college. So just circumstance, but I've then taken it upon myself I am lucky I speak French, Dutch, and English, but I've taken the time to continually learn. I've taken classes at UNLV. I didn't know business. I took time and took 3 semesters of business at CSN. The tools are out there, especially now with social media. We have the resources and we have access to everything. And so that somewhat ties into the accent, but I've invested time.
I love that. There's 2 things I want to touch on. How important is school education opposed to self-education? And this second one, just how is the self-education?
Well, let's take examples of...
Do you need to go to school and get a degree to be successful?
No. However, there's a however. There's always multiple sides to the coin, not just 2 sides. There are multiple sides to the coin. What standard education does, the value that it brings, it teaches us the fundamentals. It teaches us the alphabet. It teaches us how to do basic math. It teaches us how to construct a sentence so that we can communicate. It teaches us basic history, the basics. That's where standard education is a must.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
But then there comes a moment in our life where we now have to free ourselves from indoctrination, so to speak, because there's an element of indoctrination in standard
What does
education.
that mean?
Indoctrination would be, we are programmed in school to think a certain way, to do things a certain way.
To fit into society
Yes.
and work a job, a job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so by default, you look at the structure of the classroom, you sit down in lines and rows and you all say the same things.
And you don't ask questions. You don't. I get. Yeah.
And so one of the other motivational platforms that I talk about a lot is the power of creativity, which is our freedom. And
which is everything.
For me, it's everything. It's the free. So I leverage what I've been taught in a traditional standard way.
Yeah.
But I've also exposed myself to that which is different.
And that's self-education and reading and then talking to other people.
Going back to the Cirque Du Soleil experience, I'm working with people from China, people from Brazil, from France, from Italy, and everybody does things a bit differently.
Where did that come from? What got you kind of reading and what got you kind of thinking differently? Like Rich Dad Poor Dad was the book that changed my life, my first book. Can you think of that turning point moment where you're like, hey, this isn't just the way. There's a million different other ways.
I wish I could tell you that there was one book that did it, because oftentimes people have a defining moment.
That was my defining moment.
It's a good defining moment to have. I think for me, I joined Toastmasters. This is where my journey into becoming a public speaker. I joined randomly. Somebody said, you might enjoy Toastmasters. And I went to Toastmasters and I loved it. And for 2 years, I went religiously.
Did you really?
I did. I just loved it because I love learning. When I joined Cirque Du Soleil in the beginning, it was phenomenal because I was absorbing, I was learning, I was being challenged. I didn't remain on this line. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you live happily here, do it.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
But it wasn't for me.
No, me either. I'm constantly like, what's next? What's next?
And so that was it. And then by being in that environment, and I realized, wow, I want to help people and share this. And then I just started to write my first book, and I realized, okay, if I want to bring more value, I like to think I've got a rich life experience, but I've got to learn. I've got to be able to back up things that I've experienced with some things that successful, established people, because it basically, if I can reinforce something that I've said with a credible source, now I become.
But it does start to interlock, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding. Like a lot of stuff these guests are saying, I'm like, I preach this all the time.
Well, just the fact you mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad, that's a credible source that people.
You can't fake it, right?
No.
That's what I'm finding with this. You cannot fake it. You either do it or you don't. And if you do it, you connect with someone who does it, and you are literally just meshed to each other.
Totally.
It's an amazing feeling.
Now, the word fake it till there's the word fake it till you make it. We can fake it.
Certain things for sure.
But ultimately, we get found out. If it's not tomorrow, it will be in a couple of years. But if you fake it, ultimately, you do get found out. And faking it doesn't mean, like in the beginning, trying to become a motivational speaker, I had to present myself as, I'm Vital Germaine, motivational speaker, nice to meet you. I wasn't really the motivational speaker yet, but I was living authentically within the dream or the aspiration of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I like that.
So it's still authentic.
Or having a successful mindset before you're successful.
Yes.
That's kind of where I feel like I'm at. I've got a very successful mindset, but I'm not living up to my full potential. But I'm on my way.
But that mindset is what's going to get you there.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of said in the beginning, ultimately for me, everything boils down to what's the mindset that you have, what's the mindset that you're feeding, and what are you feeding it?
I love that.
Right?
Mindset is everything. The fitness side, the business side, I saw something. So Man's Search for Meaning, right?
Yes.
I love that book. Not many people have read that. Tony Robbins got me to read that book.
Oh.
What is the quote from that book that you love?
So
this is your favorite quote,
yes,
right?
It's my ultimate favorite
It's got me very excited.
Viktor Frankl. And it's all about, so he doesn't use the word mindset, he uses the words attitude, synonymous. Attitude in many ways is even more powerful, but his quote on attitude is, the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. So this is a man who is in the Holocaust, at the midst of one of the most atrocious human violations that has happened in modern history, right?
Concentration camp.
Concentration camp. Being raped of your pride, being raped of your dignity, being raped of food, your family. And he has the mindset to say, no matter how badly you treat me, I get to choose how I show up today.
I get to choose. That book is stuck with me. I tell everybody about that book.
And the short version of the book, what he found through his experience in the Holocaust is that having a sense of purpose. So he found purpose in trying to help and inspire others and give them. That was his sense of purpose. So he was able to keep going. A lot of Jews died not because of being starved, not because of going into the gas chamber. They starved because they lost sense of meaning. They gave up.
Which, I mean, how can you not? That's got to be, how
can you not? The answer to that is, how can you not, is because for whatever reason, you chose to not find a sense of, and there's nothing wrong.
No.
You know, I've learned in my years as a motivational speaker, when I first started, it was all about, well, you've got to be positive and you've got to be this. And well, no, I'm a human also. Just because I make a poor choice today does now not make me lesser than. So anybody listening to this podcast, if you don't align necessarily with what we're saying and you're struggling, it's okay to struggle.
Yep.
Embrace where you are and embrace who you are. Just try to find sense of meaning.
And also, would another way of saying that be, it's not necessarily what happens to you, it's the way you react on what happens to you? That's like more of a modern way of saying, like,
pretty much.
Yeah. Which is easier said than done. But once you understand that, it's so valuable. It's so valuable.
Well, you'll know this. One of the big challenges of being a motivational speaker or trying to create a platform that inspires and empowers people is that people often want, well, what's the quick version? Give me the pill. What's the pill that I take that I'm successful tomorrow? Unfortunately, I wish I could say, and it's common, 7 steps to become an overnight millionaire, 3 steps, we have all these platforms, but the reality is it doesn't happen overnight. And you can't just sort of make the choice that, I'm going to show up tomorrow and then Tuesday, I'm going to kind of again, going back to what we said earlier, you've got to be consistent and you've got to know that it doesn't happen overnight. It's got to be over time. And that's where people fall short a lot, because we are in this generation, this world of immediate reward, social media, dopamine, addiction. But success, there's that graphic. Success is like the squiggly line going all over the place. That's what success is. It's going all over the place. Failure, disappointment, upset, want to give up, get back on track. I'm amazing. No, you're crap. I'm brilliant. No, you're shit. That's the journey.
Anything worthwhile doesn't happen overnight, right? And I think you could probably relate to this, like training, exercise. I feel like that mindset transfers to business 100%.
Yes.
Because it's time, it's consistency, it's patience, it's realizing no matter what I do or say, it's 100% accountable on me and my actions. What I put in is what I get out.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same as business.
Totally. Going back to mindset. So I look at it, for me, it's the trifecta, right? So mind, body, spirit.
Mind, body, spirit.
So I know you're very athletic. You've been incredibly athletic your whole life. And I know that it's still a great part of your journey. Likewise here. For me to be the best version of myself, all 3 platforms, I've got to optimize all 3 platforms.
Okay.
When I let myself go physically, I feel sort of lethargic, not as motivated. That sharpness, that mental sharpness kind of goes away. If I don't take care of myself spiritually, and now spiritually can be whether it can be meditation, it can be prayer, whatever works for you. But those 3 platforms collectively are the mindset. And so for me, I've got to make sure that as an entrepreneur, I've got to feel good physically. That energizes me. And because I'm energized now, I can go and pursue what I want to, because I know I'm going to get knocked down. And then I've got to find those moments where I breathe and I find Zen and I can calm down, because life is stressful. So I've got to calm myself down. And then all those 3 together are the fuel to keep going that day when I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
I like that. What I'm guessing you've got a lot of consistent, like, good habits. What are some of your habits and how did you develop them? Because I know me personally, I've got a ton of them now, and I know that makes me who I am today and who I'm going to be tomorrow.
Habits are good. We're getting close to the new year, so I'm going to share my 21-90 rule. And because the new year's coming up, people will relate. So what happens January 1st? We make a New Year's resolution, right? And we will create the habit for 2 weeks. And then, so a habit takes 21 days apparently to develop.
Do you believe it? I keep hearing different things, but I mean, 21's the consistent one.
Yes. So I don't believe anything as the law of the land.
Yeah, but around
There's
about.
something to take away from it.
Okay, so 3 weeks of doing something.
So good habit, bad habit, 3 weeks, 21 days. But the objective to create ultimate change is not to go on a diet. It's not to suddenly develop new habits. It's to create a new lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so the statistic apparently is if you do something for 90 days.
90 days, 3 months.
It then becomes you.
Okay.
Because I can have a habit of going to the gym for 2 weeks. And then I stop.
But then you burn out and don't go back for 2 years. Okay.
But if over the course of our lives, we have created a lifestyle of health and fitness. We work out, we stay in shape. And if I don't, something is wrong, because that's my lifestyle.
Yeah. You fell off, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So I just started meditating for the last 2 months. That's come up through the podcast. Do I need to do that every day for 3 months, or do I need to do that 3 times a week consistently for 3 months to become
So where I found great value in meditation, it's one of the areas I definitely do it once a day.
Okay.
Definitely.
Do you think that applies of everything though? You're trying to, like, I mean, if you're trying to get back in, if you're trying to get exercise consistently, obviously you're not going to get 7 days a week. Do you think there's a balance if you need to do at least this X amount of times per week for 3 months?
It's a really good question. This is what's worked for me, because I've been meditating on and off for 20, 30 years.
Oh, really?
I go
Awesome.
through phases.
Okay.
What I found that works for me when I'm in periods of great stress or great challenge, and I meditate a lot, I'm not out of the stress and I'm not out of the challenge, but I step into composure and calm. And through that calm, I do gain clarity. So for me, the only thing that I'm going to say that I need to do every day to optimize the meditation, I have to do it every day. Sometimes I do it 3 times a day.
Okay.
I wake up, meditation. Somewhere during the day, I will try and sneak one in. And then at night, I do my meditation.
Okay.
It has transformed my, not just cerebral fortitude, but, I went through a very dark period where I hit rock bottom. One of the things that got me out of it was meditation.
Okay. Very interesting.
So when you're up here, meditate to go even higher. When you're down here, meditate to get out of it incrementally, keep doing it. So yes, meditation is the one thing I will say every day.
Okay.
The gym, yeah, I go 3-4 times a week now.
So depending what it is, it's how often you should apply it to become a 3-month habit.
Yes.
Okay.
What you're going to find though is it's like the runner's high. I don't run, but I've heard about the runner's high. We get endorphin high when we work out. For me, once I reached this point, the meditation, I felt better. I felt good. It's addictive.
Yeah, I didn't do it for a couple of days and I was like, something's off. I actually felt the urge to meditate.
That's it.
And that was amazing. I was like, and then I did it. I was like, oh my God, it was really, really good.
That's it. So you transcended to, it's a part of your lifestyle that now if I don't do it, something is missing.
Cold showers is my addiction. It's really weird. I literally feel like I'm addicted to it now.
Yeah.
I've done it every single day for 6 years and I could not do it.
Yeah.
And right now it's winter, it's cold, but I still have to do it. And I'll stick my hand under it and it's cold and it's freezing and something in me wants to get out, but part of me wants to stay in there. And I can't explain it to you. It's weird, but I've got to do it now.
And I kind of know the feeling and shame on me because I have increments where I do it. I will go months where I do it. And then I broke the cycle because I travel a lot, which is an honor. And, it's getting cold. And I was recently, I can't remember, I think it was in Chicago and it was pretty cold. No, it wasn't in Chicago. Where was I? It was really cold. Wherever it was really cold. And the shower water was just so cold. I couldn't do it. And it broke my cycle. So the workaround is instead of stepping into the cold shower, I step into a warm shower and then I end it with cold.
I feel like that's ice. So I've had people here on the podcast. I do cold showers and they tell me that like, that's not a cold shower. Wake up first thing in the morning and put yourself under cold water. Yes. That's a cold shower.
I agree with you. And you know what? You have now motivated me. I'm like,
you need that kick in the butt, right?
You do.
And I'm sure you'll give me something where like, hey, I need to push harder.
Yeah.
I just got back from Georgia. It was 37 degrees doing cold showers. I was in New York this year doing cold showers and that actually gave me an ice cream headache. But I didn't put my hand on it so much, just my body. And it was the best cold shower I've ever had. It just like, oh my God, this is real cold.
I mean, on a health level, forget the mental part, on a physical health level, the cold shower stimulates your blood circulation. It's good for it's good for everything. Stress. It's just all around.
I haven't had a cold since I started. I've not been sick since I started on cold showers, put it that way. And I would say, oh yeah, 6 months, you're lucky. A year, you're just lucky. 2 years, it's a fluke. 6 years, you're like, okay, there's some truth to it.
You're doing something right.
You're doing something right. And you got Win Hoffman, a cold shower a day will keep the doctor away.
That's right.
And it's not why I started, but now I realize like, damn, I'm not, I just don't get sick anymore.
Yeah. I haven't been sick in a while too. And a part of that, going back to mindset, there's our internal
mindset been a huge part too, like willing yourself on and off, right?
And again, going back to Cirque, one thing that I learned through the world of sports, soccer and Cirque and being a dancer and an actor is the discipline factor.
Yep.
And so I kind of grew up with that mindset that I cannot miss a match. I cannot miss training. I've got to be there no matter what. And again, it became a lifestyle where I was not going to flake out. And it's mindset. And the thing about resilience and mindset is the more you do it, the more momentum you have, the easier it becomes to maintain.
Exactly right.
Starting is hard. But once you start feeling the benefits, then it's addictive.
Talk to me. I think this kind of relates to this with business and learning to not act on emotion. You've been there, someone's screwed you over, someone's done something bad by you, you get on the phone, you yell and scream. Then after years, I've been through that, you learn to not let it worry so much, right? I'm sure you can relate to this.
Very much so. I think everybody can relate to that because we all go through it. So,
but the more you go through it, the more you learn to like, hey, there's a better way to deal with this.
There is a much better way to do it. Secondly, it's okay to feel the emotion. So I'm okay with emotions.
Yeah.
But I think what you're getting to is the goal for me is to not let the emotions blind me from what's the best thing to do.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better if I tried. That's right? Beautiful. I love how you said that.
Because
it makes things worse.
It does. Never has anger really resolved anything in the world. And if anything, all you're doing is adding fuel to whatever this fire is. The challenge is, okay, I'm getting angry. Awareness, right? Be aware that, okay, I'm getting angry. I'm getting pissed off. I'm gonna break some, whatever. I don't do that. I'm gonna
say something I shouldn't.
Exactly.
Or something I'm gonna regret.
Going back to meditation, this is what meditation has learned me. Is for me, meditation can be, you go up to the top of the mountain for 40 days and that can be meditation. Meditation can just simply be, let me just take a really deep breath here. And then I let it go. And then that recalibrates me. So I'm angry. Now I'm just a little bit less angry. And if I need to take another deep breath, but I to your point, I know that if I send out this email angry, I'm going to get an angry email back and it's going to escalate. And I'm not perfect. Here I am preaching, but I still get angry and I shouldn't have said that. It happens every day. But the awareness to minimize that is the journey.
I like that. How to win friends and influence people. Like nobody really wins an argument. No one can if I tell you the sky is blue and you think it's green and I prove you wrong, nobody really wins that. No. Yeah, I may be right, but that doesn't help the situation, doesn't help our relationship, doesn't help.
It makes us feel good. The ego.
The ego.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to me about ego and your opinion on ego. Because that's an animal in itself, isn't it?
It is an animal. So with a lot of things, I do have I like to believe a unique take. I don't subscribe to any religious philosophies or beliefs, but I do subscribe to one Buddhist principle.
Okay.
The mu theory concept. And the very simple short version is it can always be both yes and no at the same time.
Okay.
So it's not about being right. It's just about being different. So the ego is kind of the same thing. The ego is a beautiful thing, but it's an ugly thing too. Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
So the ego is what gives us our sense of personality, our sense of ambition and drive and purpose, and that's the ego. And the ego can be connected to self-preservation, dreams, goals, but that's the ego. That's the healthy ego.
Yeah.
The ego people often talk about is when this ego has lost touch of integrity and doing what's right, and it becomes hyper selfish. And once it becomes hyper selfish, there's a lack of empathy, a lack of consideration, a lack of respect. So there are the two egos. If we can live with this ego where we leverage it to do good, because that's the drive, there's no harm in the ego. But this ego here, when again we're selfish and we're mean and we're cruel as a result, because it's all about me, and at any cost I'm gonna get it my way, which means I'm probably gonna insult you, belittle you, degrade you, minimize you, because it's all focused here. So that's when the ego gets negative. And again, I've got to check myself. I get into those moments where, that was a bit egotistical. So self-evaluate, self-doubt, come to a better conclusion. Who do I want to become? And then focus on that. Who do I want to become? And then we minimize the ego. Very quickly, in my keynotes, because the ego is an important part, I use the clown nose. In my keynotes, I give people clown noses. And
you give it to everyone, do you?
To everybody.
Okay.
Because it addresses the fact of the ego. Once people put on the clown nose / a mask, the ego disappears.
Okay, that's
all
interesting.
Of a sudden, people.
That's the reason behind it, is it?
One of the reasons.
Gotcha.
Because they put on this thing that makes them feel silly, vulnerable.
Vulnerable being the first thing came to my mind.
And when you've got this clown nose on, all you can be is hey, hi, night, and you become
Yeah,
open.
it's very hard to be like all that when you're wearing a silly clown nose, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So the proof in the pudding there is that attitude is a choice. When I got the clown nose on, I'm suddenly becoming more friendly, more receptive, more open. And when I take it off, why would I give that beautiful human quality? It's a choice that you make.
Very interesting.
So,
go back to your habits. Give me some daily habits.
Meditation is one habit.
Meditation.
I don't live by a diet.
Okay.
I just consistently eat healthy.
Amen. That's all it takes.
It's all that it takes.
It's all that it is. It doesn't need to be complicated.
It does not need to be complicated. And that's it. That's one habit, eat healthy. The habit of trying to, social media, it's a beautiful thing and it's an ugly thing. I try to have my social media feed things that bring me value. So for
like
example,
following the right people, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not always motivational. I love dogs. I'm an very highly empathic. I'm an introvert. So I need things to recharge.
Yep.
I can't always drive out to the ocean. So I follow a lot of things that are either animal related, cute little puppies, brings me joy, makes me happy.
I watch surfing on YouTube all the time. I live in the desert because it makes me happy.
So that's it. So you nourish yourself with things that bring you value.
Yep.
So that for me is a crucial habit / lifestyle.
Going back to self-awareness and what makes you happy.
Yes.
Okay. Exercise, journaling, things like that.
I don't journal. People are very surprised.
So I'm just started 2 days in.
Good for you.
Because of this podcast.
Well done. I think it brings great value. I personally don't journal, but I know that it brings great value. People are like, you don't journal, but you've written 7 books. I don't journal. The way I see life, I remember things as a video. So I see life and memories as a video.
Okay.
And then I can replay it back or transpose it into words. But yes, definitely fitness, exercise. And this is a challenge when it comes to creativity. I take intentional time to be alone.
That's huge, especially with social media, audiobooks. Yes. It's very easy to always have something going.
Yes.
So that is something I read maybe a couple of years ago, was taking time to be alone, time to be quiet.
Yes.
And why is that important to you?
Rumi, if you subscribe to Rumi, has a quote something like, in the silence, we find answers. All right? We slow things down. We actually have time to think. We let the noise disappear. But the other part of silence which scares people is that in being alone and being in the silence, you have to face yourself.
Okay.
Self-awareness, the best place to be self-aware is in silence.
So what type of stuff are you facing when you're alone?
Well, monkey brain. Your mind is racing at 100 miles an hour. The things that you need to do, the things that you didn't do, the regrets, the things that you wish you'd said, and it's all going like, oh yeah, I feel guilty, I shouldn't have done that, or I feel great, I want to do that. It goes at 1,000 miles an hour.
So you're not able to mask it through distractions.
No.
Interesting.
So
true though.
But it's so true. Sitting there alone, in silence, you get to understand yourself better. What are the thoughts that are dominating my mind? What are the things that I really want to become? We're so distracted by social media. It's very hard to live authentically now because we're bombarded with, well, you should be this, you should be doing this.
You should be, right? Yeah.
But no, I shouldn't, because that's not for me.
And comparing yourself with others and the best of somebody, and you never see their lows or the vulnerability, the humility, like you said.
And also when you're alone, you get to understand, well, yeah, these are the things about me that I find ugly, that I find shameful, that I find weak. And being exposed to those, once you're aware of something, it's hard to not take action. If you don't like it enough.
This isn't your meditation time though, is it?
No,
so
different to meditation.
How do you do your alone time? Where do you do it? How do you do it?
Mindfulness. Okay. So for example, mindfulness and meditation overlap, but they're not quite the same. So I walk my dogs.
Yep.
Right? I can just walk my dogs, but I can be mindful about walking my dogs and literally paying attention to it. For example, the way my 2 dogs have a different cadence. The sound of the leaves when I'm walking, it's just all internal.
Okay.
The smells. I'm not meditating, but I'm being very self-observant, my breathing. And then I pay attention to what's going through my mind.
Okay.
What are my worries today? Why? Oh my God, those bills, and it just keeps replaying. But I'm with myself. Whereas if I quickly get onto my phone and get distracted, I've not addressed the problem.
Interesting.
So the problem, we brush our problems under the rug. Sit with them.
So where I find I'm able to do it is sometimes, like every time I'm in the car, I've got audiobooks on. I'm always learning. But sometimes, no, I'm not putting anything on. I'm going to do this 20-minute drive and I'm not going to have any music. I'm not going to have an audiobook and I'm going to have quiet time.
So then what happens for you?
My mind starts to do what you said, exactly the same. But it's being aware enough to know that, hey, you don't need to listen to another book right now. You can go 20 minutes without anything on.
But it's healthy. It's so healthy for the self.
Sometimes I go, like I'm at the dog park most days and it might be just 30 minutes just sitting there, but nothing in my ears, not talking to anybody, going to the far end of the park where I'm not going to be distracted by anybody. So I'm in my own time.
That's it. But modern society, we are so disconnected from the self. And I love social media. I'm addicted to my phone. I try to minimize it, but we are so compelled to always be, what's the acronym? Fear of missing out, FOMO.
FOMO, okay.
Right? I've got to stay connected. What are they doing? Just bring it in. Bring it in. And the ultimate takeaway from alone time is the clarity that comes at the end of it.
I like that.
Unbelievable.
What are your opinion on this? Oprah, Zig Ziglar, they talk about not watching the news, not reading newspapers because it's just negative stuff. What's your thoughts on that?
I love them both, by the way. I mean, Zig Ziglar is one of the founders of modern day motivational speakers and mindset. I don't subscribe. For me, there is no one thing that is the thing. It's a question of doing things in moderation. So I like to be somewhat up to speed with world events. Now, it depends how you listen to those world events.
That's the thing too, right?
Do I blindly subscribe to what was said? Because it's all propaganda. There's always an agenda. But what can I learn from this so-called propaganda? Does it align with my values? Does it make me angry? We're going back to that. Does it make me angry? And should I go in there and like vent and spew?
Or scared or
scared.
Yeah.
Or what's the lesson? So you can watch the news and intellectually dissect it and understand, what can I learn from this? But the danger with the news is it's always negative, right? That's
and there's always agenda, like you said.
But we get caught up in it.
Yep.
It's like our emotions. It's okay to feel emotions. It's not good to be enslaved by your emotions. There's nothing wrong with being aware of current situations. Don't get caught up in the emotions and whatever hidden agendas there are. Come to your own conclusions and then move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I like it. You're not like, it's not this way or this way. It can't be. But being a certain type of person, reading, thinking a certain type, it's kind of like who's president, right? So-and-so's president, the world's come to an end. Does it ever make any difference in your life? Never, right?
This is a whole different type of podcast, but I'll touch on it with staying away from politics and religion. But I'll say this. Ultimately, the changes, and I'm going to say this is the genius, I think, of America. You know, we both live in the United States now. The genius of the forefathers, there were a lot of fallacies, but the genius of the forefathers is no matter who's in office, the changes are within degrees. So it's never too bad or too ugly. We all still live a pretty decent life. Now, again, it's a question of, am I going to focus on the negatives and get caught up in my anger and frustration and live here all the time? Or am I going to focus on what my sense of purpose is? What value am I bringing to the world?
And focus on you and your goals and your direction, not letting all those outside influences make any difference. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, don't get caught up in all this and just focus on this. Books that you have read over the years, things that have made a dramatic difference in your life. What's some of the things come to mind?
Some of the more standard motivational books. You mentioned Zig Ziglar, Stephen Covey. Now, you call him Covey, don't you? I think in Australia. Stephen Covey.
It is Covey, though, to be honest.
Is it Covey?
Yeah, you're actually right. Now I think about it.
His name will come to me in a minute. He did the podcast about the Golden Triangle, Start With Why. Simon Sinek.
Okay,
Love Simon
yeah.
Sinek. I mean, I could go on. I do love, basically now, he wasn't the godfather of motivational speaking, but he is the consummate motivational speaker. You mentioned that you got to meet him, or Tony Robbins.
Oh, Tony Robbins, yeah.
Amazing. But I also believe that there's a shift, and I love TikTok, by the way. On TikTok, there are a lot of unestablished motivational speakers, but boy, there's a wealth of
knowledge there,
and different perceptions. And so I like to just absorb information in any capacity. My take is this, right? I do learn from established entities, but I'm not blinded by the authority in them, because as back in the day when I choreographed and directed, sometimes somebody who's in theater cleaning might just make a comment. And you know what? It was brilliant. Credibility is one thing, but it doesn't guarantee that what that credibility is telling you is actually the right thing.
Okay.
So I'm open to everybody's suggestions and ideas.
Yeah.
Because again, going back to the beginning of this podcast, everybody has a story. Everybody's had a journey. Everybody's overcome stuff. What you're going to share with me right now might be what I needed to hear. Doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a Fortune 100 company. You could be the gardener, but you've got, you know what? And the gardener, I've met people who, you're a barista at the coffee shop, but you've got a nuclear physicist degree. Never judge people.
You never know, right?
Never know. So
you never know what they're
be
wearing,
open.
the shoes they're wearing. You never know.
Always be open to.
And you also too, something else. You don't have to like the person to take value from someone.
No.
And I always think like Trump comes to mind. Like whether you like him or not, I'm sure he's said something where it's got value to help somebody out there.
I might draw the line on that one.
Maybe that's an extreme example. But you don't necessarily have to like everybody. There's always value in what someone's got to say.
To your point, and I joked about that, about Donald Trump. I personally don't subscribe to him as an individual. Politics aside, I just don't like him.
Yeah, I don't care about politics at all.
But that's, to your point though, ultimately, there is something to learn from everybody. And I do try to listen. And this ties into my recent book, by the way, Pink is the Color of Empathy. So empathy is about trying to understand why the person might be that way, why they're making their decisions, what got them to where they are. Just because I want to understand and I can learn from you doesn't mean that I have to agree or condone the behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of the answer.
Yeah.
That's where empathy comes into play.
Okay.
Yeah, we can totally disagree. I might really dislike you. I can still honor you and I can still respect you.
That's a perfect way of putting it. What makes you write a book? Is something you've always wanted to do? I can personally say I want to write books. Have you? And I've wanted to do that since I was 20. Were you like that, or where did that come from?
No, the first book that I wrote about 10 years ago now.
So it was only 10 years ago, your first book?
Maybe more, time flies, maybe 12 years ago. It took me forever to write it, and it was just something that I was compelled to do.
Did you procrastinate on it?
Totally, absolutely.
I love it. How long did you procrastinate?
Oh, years.
Why was that?
Going back to the imposter syndrome, part of it was, I'm not an author.
So exact same problem as like, I'm not a speaker. Who am I? So just because you break it free from one thing doesn't mean you break it free from everything.
No.
Love that.
Again, for you, if you want to write the book, I encourage you to write your book, because obviously from what I know of your journey, you've got a wealth of stuff to share, right? And so I love quotes. Picasso, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away.
Oh, I like that.
Right? So you've got this wealth of experience in different industries, and your objective is you want to inspire and empower people. It's almost your duty. I don't believe in God, but if you do, God gives you a gift. God's given you a platform. God's given you a voice. Why wouldn't you honor that?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's nearly selfish to hold it to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's kind of what set me free, is that my story is one of great shame. It's childhood abuse, sexual abuse. It's all these horrible things in my childhood that I kept secret until I was 40.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of the guilt and the shame. And then at one point I started to realize, wow, there are other people out there like me. And maybe my sob story might empower them.
That's interesting.
So it's all relative. You might have this much wealth to share with the world, and Zig Ziglar has this much, but you've got this much, and there are people who need to hear just that.
That right thing at the right time by the right person.
That's it.
That's interesting.
Go write that book. I will be back. I will. Now that I know you want to write a book, lean on me. I will help you. I'll give you some insight. Books are valuable, and again, somebody needs to hear your story.
I think for me, it was like go to school, get good grades, get a good job, work 40 hours a week for 40 years, and then retire. And then what I realized is like, it's all BS. That's just to fit into society. Do what you're told. Don't color outside the lines. Don't ask questions back. And then you kind of get, it's like, I always say like Robert Bannister, the 4-minute mile. You've heard the story, right?
Yeah, once he broke it.
27 people did it the next week. It's like, if you don't have permission to work for yourself or do something, and it's not in your family, your parents aren't entrepreneurs, you don't know any different. And then once you read something, you realize there's another way of doing it. You're like, oh my God, like why have I been holding this back?
Yes.
And then that's environmental surroundings. People are telling you shouldn't, you couldn't. Why would you want to do that? People are trying to pull you back.
Yes, all of the above.
So I would love to have something that stuck around for hundreds of years that broke that perception and told people that it's okay if you like drawing and you want to draw pictures.
Yes.
Go nuts.
That's everything you just said there is one of my key platforms under the guise of creativity. It's this freedom from standards, freedom from established ceilings that society places on us.
Yeah, breaking that society's perception of that, like this is what you're supposed to do. Yes. Yeah, and then like I find I'll talk to people like, wow, you're so motivating. I never thought about that. And I was like, maybe you should speak. I was like, so that's kind of where, and see, that's why I love talking to you. You're doing everything that I think I probably should be doing.
You are already doing it. The fact that you're doing a podcast, and by the way, you've inspired me to sort of do a podcast because I've been watching you.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's awesome.
And you're doing great. And the messaging that you're sharing and the lives that you're touching, it's powerful. Here's the other thing about the imposter syndrome and doubting what we do maybe is, many years ago, I watched this TED talk and his name will come to me. Drew Dudley, Canadian guy. It's called Lollipop Moments, right? The very short version, it's like a 20-minute TED talk. I'm going to give you the 30-second TED talk. His message is this. Over his life, there have been people who have come up to him and said, that thing you said changed my life. He had no idea. If they had not told him that, he would have never known. If everybody whose lives you've touched at some point came to you and said, by the way, that thing you did, that thing you said changed my life, you would understand that, oh my God, I am so empowered. But we don't know.
We don't know.
So there are two sides to that coin. One is to try and be aware that you have touched lives, and now it's a question of touching more lives.
That's hard though.
But it is hard, but you have impacted lives. As a performer, we take this for granted. Every time we went out on stage, we touched people in the audience, but we don't register that. We don't register that. Yeah, we just went out and did our job. No, we distracted people, we entertained people, we gave them joy. That's powerful stuff. But we don't actually have a metric for that. And then the other side of the flip coin is this. How many people have touched you in your life, but you've never told them?
Oh, I like that. So many. Even a video on TikTok and I won't like it or comment, but it's literally empowered me. I love that. And honestly, like what comes to mind, and I've talked about this in other podcasts, is the reason behind this podcast is so one day I walk in the gym and someone's like, I dropped 100 pounds because of you. I started a business because of you. And what you're saying is I might already actually be doing that.
You are already doing it.
That's crazy. That's really hard for me to get my head around.
Yeah.
Because I'm the nobody. I'm just started.
Again, I'll say it. I've been watching you doing your podcast. I'm like,
but I mean, to hear that from you is like amazing. Like that's how you just get caught up in your own mind, right? Getting in your own way.
Yeah. And very quickly, the same thing with your photography. I know that these are separate platforms, but I connected with you because of your photography. You didn't reach out to me and try and sell me something. I just watched you.
Okay.
And at some point I'm like, I gotta hire this guy.
That's the person for me.
But you would have never known.
Yeah.
That's the beauty and the sadness of the world is that we don't always know and we just have to keep going. And here's what I'm when I remind myself, because there are times I want to give up. I know that feeling. There are times when I think, what am I doing? What are you doing, Vital? You're a clown. You're a circus clown. You're not a motivational speaker. And then I'll go and give a motivational speech somewhere, and one person will come and give me a hug, but I mean like a different kind of hug.
Yeah, okay.
And that one hug with them saying, thank you, then I can go back to the drawing board and be like,
next 5 years you're motivated through you. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
What has been the struggles with speaking? I'm sure it didn't just fall in your lap and it was amazing from day one. Was it like, what were the ups and downs on the road?
Typical entrepreneurial struggles. You have a vision, you have a mission, you invest time, you develop the tools, you learn the tools, but then they're crickets. Nobody's hiring you, nobody's booking you. And then you want to give up. And
you feel invisible, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Okay.
And then you get the small gig. You start a pizza parlor and nobody initially wants to buy your pizza. Then maybe 5 people come and buy your pizza. And then hopefully, if you've brought value, those 5 people will tell a friend. But it might take another 6 months for those friends. Again, be consistent, keep believing, have the self-doubt, but just keep believing. The self-doubt is only to reevaluate the plan, right? But keep believing, because here's what I've noticed is you've got to have one of 2 things. And if you've got both, you're blessed. You've got to have either a lot of passion, because when you have passion, you're compelled to do it. You don't need discipline.
Well, that was my next question, is how important is it to be passionate about what you're doing?
It's important. So for me, secret, I actually don't have that much discipline. So right now, my word of the month is on my board is discipline.
Okay.
I need more discipline because I've lived my life fueled by passion.
Okay.
But there are times when I don't always have the passion. So now I've got to leverage discipline, but I don't have enough discipline. So any dream that you're pursuing, connect with your passion. And if the passion isn't getting you over the line, then you've got to develop discipline.
Gotcha.
But when you have both, you can't be stopped.
Yeah, I was going to say unstoppable is the first word that comes to my mind.
You cannot be stopped.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I know you've got the passion. I would imagine with your life background, you've got to have discipline.
I'm very disciplined.
Yeah.
I'm beyond disciplined. It's kind of crazy. Sometimes it's hard for me to switch off.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's that self-aware. I think I'm just lucky. I think I'm lucky. I just like in the gym. I like reading. Like I read 3 to 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to in a bragging way. It's literally what I do. Something new I've started doing is rather than watching TV or watching Family Guy, I'm like, okay, Charles Darwin. Let's learn about him. Charles Darwin leads to Vincent van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh is like, I wonder if they had slavery in England. Start researching that. And then I realized, oh my God, there was more slavery in England than there was anywhere else in the world. And then, hey, let's learn about segregation. And segregation leads to Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King leads to who shot Martin Luther King. And I'm keeping track of all these things. I'm like, oh my God, I'm becoming... And the reason behind it was I don't want to sound like an idiot on camera. Yeah. You bring up something to do with England, I want to know. I want to already have a fair bit of an idea so I can have an intelligent conversation with you.
Yeah.
But what it's doing is like dinosaurs. It's just, I'm loving it. And what I realized, I spent so much time, and I don't watch a lot of television compared to most people, but what I realized when I am watching television, why not learn something?
Absolutely.
And it's been amazing. I cannot stress. And plus I'm reading 3 to 4 hours a day on top of that. And I'm having these conversations. So it's like brilliant. knowledge.
But what I'm glad about you is that type of behavior, I have some of that. And it's easy for people to diagnose us with ADHD.
Really?
Yeah, because we're seemingly all over the place. No, we're just curious.
So curious.
We're just curious.
Even when I meet you personally, like, I feel like I just got interviewed. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm very curious about people.
But that's it. I'm the same way. Yeah. And so curiosity leads to knowledge, wisdom, intellect, and that empowers us. So.
And then you want to share it with other people. It's not for
yes, you're
it's like as soon as I learn about it, I want to tell someone else about it.
So passion, discipline, and curiosity. I mean, but very quickly going back to your thing about curiosity and wanting to learn. I mean, you go down the rabbit hole. I do that too. But if it's going back to mindset, you've got an open mindset by the fact that you are curious. It's opening your world.
Yeah.
Which means that you are learning to view life from a different way other than just what's yours.
Yeah, 100%, right? And that's what I want this platform to be, is a non-biased platform. If you're a vegetarian, I want to know why you're a vegetarian.
Yeah.
If you're a carnivore, why you're a carnivore.
But that mindset I know this specific podcast isn't about company culture and leadership and sales, but that sense of curiosity that you're talking about drives good businesses because it drives good salespeople, because salespeople and businesses can do the superficial needs analysis, right? Oh, you want to buy a house? Well, I've got this. But if you're truly curious about people, you become a better salesperson. If you're truly curious about people, you become a better leader. You develop better company cultures. If you're an entrepreneur who's genuinely curious about the well-being of your clientele, you bring great value. So we went from curiosity, but curiosity is the foundation of human connection. It's powerful.
That's very crazy. And even the books I've been reading, like this book on psychology I'm reading at the moment. Oh my God. So I'll
recommend it.
I'll run this by you. He goes, if a brother and sister decide to have sex and they use 2 forms of protection, what's wrong with it? And the first thing comes to mind is, incest, it's bad, blah, blah, blah. But they're using 2 forms of protection.
Wow, I don't know where to go with this. I'm just going to be open and receptive to whatever's going to happen.
And it just makes you think. And it's like, and it's basically saying people always jump to the first thing, this is why it's bad, this is why it's bad. But when you take that away, they look for the next thing is bad, the next thing is bad. So what they say is, if brother and sister have sex, it's going to wreck the relationship. But this book says by having sex and doing it once off, it actually made them closer. So now we start looking for that next line of defense of why is this bad? And it's not to say it's right or wrong. It's just to get you to think outside the box and to challenge your way of thinking.
Wow.
Happiness hypothesis.
That is a bomb. I mean, that is a thought-evoking bomb. I mean, that was just like, boom.
Yeah, wow. And I'm the same. I was like, everything that I used to defend it, they addressed it. I was like, damn, okay, he's chipping away. I'm like...
So my immediate reaction is, that's disgusting.
But
However,
why?
I am going to think about it, because this is an opportunity to either expand my thinking, and maybe I'm not as open-minded as I like to think I am. This is the funny thing about being open-minded. I preach open-mindedness, and then I have to remind myself how narrow-minded of me to find you narrow-minded. Right? So when I accuse people of being narrow-minded, I'm too being narrow-minded. So you've just given me something that I'm going to put thought into it. And again, going back to the empathy part, I don't necessarily will agree with it, but I'm going to try to understand it.
Yeah, it's like, why don't you agree with it?
Because my instinctual reaction, partly due to the way we're raised and societal standards,
and I'm on the exact same page as you. I totally agree with you.
And that's why I want to analyze it, because is my response based on that programming, or is it an innate human trait? I don't know. Wow.
Okay, so your books, 7 of them. What are they about? Why are they bestsellers? Congratulations, by the way. That's amazing.
Thank you. There are 7. And one day you're going to have a bestseller, right? There are 7 books. They all talk about slightly different things, but the through line is always mindset.
Okay.
Several of the books, I tap into the Cirque Du Soleil experience. What drives or what inspires excellence? How do you become unique? What's your differentiator in terms of entrepreneurship and business? How do you inspire as a leader? How do you inspire others to not just do what you want them to do, but to become a leader unto themselves? So that's several of the books. Other books talk about just the mindset of creativity, the power of creativity, the freedom of creativity. It gives us courage to take risks and fail along the way, all those things. But ultimately, it's all about reaching higher. How do you want to go from who you are today to that next version of you, which is hopefully a higher elevated version? And again, going back to something I mentioned earlier, it's not a quick pill. You're not going to read a book and all of a sudden everything's going to fall into place, but it's about planting seeds to inspire people to take their lives to the next level.
I always think, for me, if I read a book and I get one thing, it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's one thing in my tool belt for the rest of my life.
Yes.
And what I've found by reading the same book multiple times over the years, you take different things out of the book because you're at a different point in your life.
Yes.
And can you relate to that?
Yes, 2 books that I've read multiple times. And one is the consumer motivational book, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, Napoleon Hill.
Hill, right? So I've read that maybe 3, maybe 4 times. And each time that I've read it, because I was at a different place, I found different course, there are the recurring themes that you grasp.
It also reinforces the basic stuff that you got out of
Yes.
it, but then you start to get new stuff out of
Yes.
it.
And then the other book, which is not a business book, but it's just a book about the human journey, is The Alchemist.
Okay.
Paulo Coelho.
I think I've read that, but I can't recall it, so I probably need to read it again.
The short version, it's the journey of this kid, Santiago, who travels across the desert to pursue find his dream, find his goal.
So I can pick the cover. Like, I know exactly what it looks like. I just can't tell you I've read it.
It's The Alchemist. And
Gotcha.
Every time I read it, I'm like, wow, I didn't catch that last time. So, but it's like movies, you know, you
see different things, but a book you relate to something. What is mindset in your opinion?
I think maybe the more technical sort of definitions would be a set of beliefs that drives our decision making. We're programmed, we've got a certain aptitude, a certain attitude. And
that's upbringing, environmental, parents, things like that.
Yeah.
And then trying to develop would you say a stronger, a more open, a more well-rounded mindset, a more disciplined mindset, or everything I just mentioned? All of the
above. Though the mindset. I mean, we have our innate. This is now going somewhat woo, you know, deep and sort of paranormal type thing. Is that I believe as humans, as a spirit, as an entity of energy, we have these certain innate traits that. We come into this world with these certain gifts and certain limitations or abilities, right? And due to nurture or lack thereof, certain of those traits either get accentuated or they get diminished. And then as we get to adulthood, now we get to the choice where I want to or I need to improve certain of these traits. Now that goes back to the mindset because it's all based on, I've got these limiting beliefs, I've been programmed this way. Do I leverage those or do I discover new ones? But the mindset is what enables us to, one, search for the better, the different. And then the next important key is we can have a mindset of, I'm going to do this, but it's the taking action, right?
Which is everything.
Well, because how many times have I said, I'm going to do that? And then 2 years later, I'm still telling myself I'm going to do that.
So many good ideas out there that will never have action taken on them.
So again, mindset is all of those things, but ultimately it's taking action and then following through.
That's great. There's so many things I could talk to you about. It's literally trying to pick which direction to go.
It's been amazing.
I actually love to have you back on here. Like this is something I could do very regularly with you. There's so many things I can touch on. The last thing I kind of want to finish on is I feel like immigrants like you and I, we appreciate this country so much more than someone born here. Why do you think that is? How do you get someone to have a true perspective on how damn lucky they are to live in this country?
That's a very complex and delicate issue because it would mean putting sort of people into a box or giving them a label. But I do understand the concept of generalizations to make a point.
And it's not like you're from a bad country. I'm from, we're actually from first world countries, great places. Yeah. So, I mean, we get it to a certain point, but we don't, growing up in India or anywhere in South America or coming here from anywhere else besides the two countries we came from.
It's a really good question because I think the concept of taking things for granted, I'll answer the question by using a personal, not my personal example, but just personal life in general. We take things for granted. I remember living in New York. I was living in a rat-infested studio. And all I kept telling myself is, if only I could live in a slightly nicer place. If only I could make an extra $500, life would be perfect. Because I took for granted that I've still got a roof over my head. I can go to a toilet that has running water. I can take a shower. I took all those basic things for granted because I'm always wanting the more. And then I found a job that gave me an extra $500 and I moved into a better place. But now I want this. And then so I took, and that's sort of the human condition, is that we've got to intentionally try to remind ourselves to be grateful for what we have.
Is that pre-programming and conditioning through society and media?
I personally think that's part of the human condition. Whatever is there, we eventually take it for granted.
Okay.
And it's only when it's taken away, health being the prime example. I'm healthy, you're healthy. We take it for granted. At least I know I do sometimes.
I feel like that's why we get sick, to be honest.
It's almost this reminder.
It gives a kick in the butt to appreciate how good we do have it.
Simple example. How much do you focus on the tips of your fingers? You don't until you get a paper cut.
And
then everything you touch is like, God damn it.
You've heard that saying, a paper cut to that person is worse than a famine in China?
Yes.
It's so true though, right?
So that's it. It's whatever is in front of us immediate where we lack. Now it suddenly becomes, oh, this sucks. Well, and when it comes to gratitude, I'm sort of on the fence. I do believe in the practice of gratitude. But gratitude, it's supposed to be this conduit to happiness and stuff like that. But to your point, when you've got a paper cut, it's hard to be grateful that now I've still got a finger, because I'm focused. It's
your whole world, right?
Yeah. Yes. So gratitude is a strange concept. But going back to maybe the broader picture of America, a part of it is, if you look at business and marketing, America has done a brilliant job in marketing itself as the go-to place. I was attracted by the glitz and the glam and the American dream, and everything is bigger, better, faster, and more glamorous. I was attracted to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But now that I've been here for 30 years, I now also understand, well, there are fallacies, there are social issues that need to be improved. There's all these things, but this is the image. And so for the most part, the world wants to experience capitalism at its best, at its ugliest, depending on how you want to look at it. What I love about America is still the belief in opportunity. I love my country of Belgium. I love my country of England. But what attracted me about America is I thought that I could become more by going to America. Okay.
Do you still think that?
Looking at the life and the things that I've been able to achieve, I would say yes.
I think so too.
But I'll never know. But I would say so.
I think so too, as far as, I think just on the sheer population alone, and just how isolated it is. I want to ask you this, something I just read. They say that someone who's won the lottery and somebody who's been paralyzed after a certain amount of time will come to the same level of happiness. And what they're saying is you just become numb to, you win the lotto, you start wearing nice clothes, nice car, whatever it is, but then you become complacent with it.
Absolutely.
And someone who's become paralyzed is such a low that any achievement is such a high jump because of how low you are. But they basically say at a certain point, you'll come to the same level of happiness. It's really hard to get your head around, isn't it?
It is very hard. I think what comes to mind is the word acceptance, and some deep spiritual authors that if we live with zero expectation, now this is getting really, Zen, floating on a carpet, so to speak. But if we reach a point of pure acceptance, no expectations, non-attachment, all of those things, then yes, the person who has this tragedy of being paralyzed is a much greater level of acceptance, right? They've got to go through a much tougher journey. But the person who wins the lottery and eventually gets to the same place, it's because they now have experienced this incredible attachment to money. And then as it fades, it becomes equal and opposite to their level of happiness. We correlate happiness, the downside of America, we correlate happiness with material, with possessions. 100%. And maybe somebody who gets not hypnotized, who gets paralyzed, they're looking for a completely different level of happiness.
More in depth, right?
More in depth. And I think that's where, so one, and I don't want to put labels, but maybe one is more superficial, so it's short term. And then this one is much deeper.
And empowering.
Yeah,
I just wonder what you thought about that.
Yeah. Having said that, I would rather win the lottery and lose everything.
Yeah, 100%. But you do see people who have become paralyzed or gone through horrific things, and they've never been happier. And I never want to have to go through that. That's why I like reading and trying to keep that perception of, hey, I am lucky. I could be worse. I could be here. I could be a 43-year-old living in China. So I hope that's enough and I never have to go through that life lesson. But yeah.
But I think it's fundamentally what basically you said there is that it's the depth of life lesson, humility. When everything's been taken away from you that you valued so much, what's left? You can only go inward and deeper.
I love it. Thank you
Absolute
so
pleasure,
much.
mate. I love what you're doing. And like I said, great things are happening for you. You've inspired me. So
No, I appreciate that. Really means a lot.
You'll be a guest on my podcast.
I love that. I would love to do that.
Appreciate it, mate.
Thank
Cheers.
you.